Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of GeoPod. I'm your host in the woods, and on today's episode I'd like to discuss the recent ICC verdict regarding the issuing of the arrest warrants targeting former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and current Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So previously on this channel, I believe a couple months or so ago, I recorded a clip in which I outed my concerns regarding the ongoing ICC case against Israel, as well as the predisposition of, let's say, the general prosecutor Amir Khan. Unfortunately, with the passing of this verdict, it appears that most of my predictions and anticipations have proven to be correct. The ICC verdict, in my opinion, stands as a testament to the ability that the highest echelons of political, social, and judicial frameworks within the international community can be altered by the loudest of voices, which seem to be based on nothing but ill-informed and emotionally deluded narratives. The result of a very profound and cunningly orchestrated PR campaign with the sole aim of altering an historical narrative in favor of a certain party. Over the course of this case, the trial, the involvement of South Africa and other nations like it, the ICC has shown to be incredibly subjective and has failed at every turn in order to perform its due diligence. There are no traces of objective research, there are no traces of objective investigations. And the fact that they've reached this verdict, regardless of the stern and concrete evidence to the contrary, stands as a testament to their bias and subjectivity, which is a very dangerous precedent and will most likely alter the way in which urban warfare is waged in the future. The ICC, in its statement, said that they believe to have found reasonable grounds to find Israel, in particular the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Benjamin Netanyahu, guilty of what can be attributed to the following three accusations, let's say. First is the disruption and prevention of humanitarian aid entering the Palestinian territories. Secondly, it's the use of starvation as a method of war, as well as the deprivation of vital resources essential to the survival of the Gazan population. Thirdly, they've accused Israel of inhumane acts, in particular collective punishment and the intentional targeting of civilians during their ongoing military campaign within the Palestinian territories. So these are the three allegations where the ICC have said they have found reasonable grounds to find Israel guilty of these crimes. But then, when you take a look at how they arrived at this conclusion, it's based on nothing but hearsay and subjectivity. There is no concrete evidence to back up any of these claims. No concrete evidence provided to them by impartial, neutral parties. This is a verdict based on nothing but misinformation, propaganda, and emotionally deluded narratives, the bulk of which has been disseminated to them by the branches of a known terrorist organization. Evidence to the contrary has been delivered to them on numerous occasions, but there's one case to me that stands out, and that's the report of the high-level military group, which was disseminated to the ICC in August of this year. Now, for those of you who don't know, the high-level military group is an organization that consists of former high-ranking military officials and defense administrators belonging to NATO member states. And what this organization has done is initiate a survey that lasted for many months within Israel as well as the Palestinian territories, with the aim to determine whether or not Israel abided by humanitarian law and the laws of warfare. The report consists of approximately 13 pages. It's readily available for everyone to read. 'It's It's downloadable on the internet, and everyone can look into it. What that report basically said, or basically states or confirms rather, is many of the things that I've previously discussed here on this channel. The fact that Israel prevents humanitarian aid entering Gaza is simply not true. In fact, according to the high-level military group, Israel has gone above and beyond to facilitate humanitarian aid to Gaza's population. This is backed up not just by their report, but by manifest, satellite imagery, and intelligence assessments. The high-level military group stated that the level at which Israel currently facilitates humanitarian aid to Gaza's population stands far above the capabilities of current NATO member states. Meaning that Western militaries, as of right now, can't facilitate humanitarian aid to the level that Israel is doing right now. Which is something to think about, to say the least. Amir Khan has previously accused Israel of intentionally closing the Erez border crossing and the Kerem Shalom border crossing early at the start of this war. What he fails to notice, however, is that both of these border crossings have suffered significant damage by Hamas attacks and artillery, rocket fire, as well as the direct infiltrations on 7 October. Especially the Erez border crossing was left inoperable based on Hamas incursions within Israeli territory. The Rafah border crossing was left inoperable because the Egyptians didn't want to play ball, not because Israel rendered them inoperable. Talking about vital resources, water, electricity. Multiple times the ICC has accused Israel of cutting off water supply lines, cutting off electricity networks. Here's the other side of this coin. Most of the water going through Gaza does not originate from within Israel. Israel has 3 pipelines going into Gaza, just 3, 2 of which have been damaged by Hamas, have been sabotaged. Electricity networks, similar. Most of the electricity networks that have been damaged in Gaza since the start of this war have been done so as a result of Hamas's military operations, failed rocket launches, sabotage. Then there's another thing to consider. That Hamas has hijacked electronic networks in order to further their own operations, putting their own population at a disadvantage, and thereby at a huge risk, using electricity networks of hospitals, businesses, to further their goals and to maintain their operational continuity. There's talk of Israel intentionally targeting Gaza's civilian population as a form of collective punishment. And Amir Khan says the current death toll stands as a testament to that. Well, let us take a look at the numbers, shall we? The current death toll stands at approximately 43 to 44,000 casualties in general. There's no differentiation between combatants and civilians in these statistics. And these statistics, mind you, are disseminated not by impartial neutral parties, but by Gaza's Ministry of Health, which is a direct branch of Hamas. So, a terrorist organization who's actively combating Israel, who for the past decade and more or so has relied solely on lawfare and the manipulation of public perception in order to maintain in power. So is that a source that we should take as credible? I'll leave that to you for you to decide. Once again, let us come back to the numbers. Okay, for argument's sake, let's stick to, let's say, 43,000. Here's what we also know. Hamas's command and control structure has been obliterated. The vast majority of its combatants have been eliminated. Hamas has but a handful of squadrons and battalions left. So right before this war, Hamas' total manpower stood at approximately 30,000 to 40,000. Here's what we also must take into consideration. These were acknowledged Hamas combatants. Over the course of the last couple of incidents between Hamas and Israel, we have seen that Hamas tends to recruit en masse from its civilian population at the eruption of a new conflict. So there might be many more, either accomplices or low-profile combatants that have not yet been acknowledged as such within the ranks of Hamas. So then, let's say 30 to 40,000, let's say 75 to 80%, which stands a little bit lower than the current Israeli estimate, of Hamas as manpower and battalions have been diminished. That brings us at about a number of 25,000, approximately, give or take. What that means is that over the course of this war, a highly complex urban conflict, the likes of which we've never seen before, not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan, not in Vietnam, not in Kosovo. What this means is that Israel has taken out more enemy combatants compared to the civilian casualties as a result of the ongoing war. That is an exceptional statistic, and let me tell you why. Currently, for all global conflicts in modern warfare, the established combatant to civilian death ratio stands at 1 to 9. This is a global estimate, which means that for every enemy combatant killed, or officially defined and designated combatant killed, there are 9 civilians who lose their lives. So if Israel just achieved, let's say, this standard, we would have been looking at hundreds of thousands of civilian casualties. And even if that were to occur, these numbers wouldn't be exceptionally high. They would still be considered the norm in modern warfare. Obviously, these statistics are a global estimate. There are wars, especially the war within Iraq and in Afghanistan, where the ratio was much less. But even compared to those two wars, Israel's current combatant to civilian death ratio far exceeds those numbers. It's far less. The civilian death ratios are far below compared to the wars in Afghanistan and the wars in Iraq. And mind you, like I said before, Israel is operating in an incredibly complex and complicated urban theater, the likes of which the United States Armed Forces have not seen before. So for the ICC to condemn Israel of intentionally targeting Gaza's civilian populace, well, if that's true, then we must come to the conclusion that Israel is the most inefficient military force on the face of this planet, given the fact that it took out more combatants than civilians. So what does that say? Well, the accusations are simply not true. Then there is another element to consider, which is Hamas' persistent strategies of using and optimizing and utilizing its own civilian population as human shields. A tactic they've long adhered to ever since they came into power within the Gaza Strip in 2005. Again, putting all this information into consideration, one cannot help but to arrive at the conclusion that the ICC has dramatically failed in its duties. Its sole purpose, in my eyes, seemed to be the appeasement of those loudest voices, who, like I said, are based upon nothing but ill-informed and emotionally denuded narratives disseminated to them by parties, entities, and organizations whose sole purpose is to blur the lines between truth and falsehoods. The ICC has created a very dangerous precedent for the future of urban warfare that modern armed forces simply cannot live up to. It appears as though the international community cannot fathom the fact that there are forces at work within this world who would gladly sacrifice their own people in order to achieve their objectives. Their objectives of destruction, their objectives of anarchy and total dissolution. The ICC has failed. It's as simple as that. And now, it's very interesting to see how the international community will respond to this verdict. The United States certainly won't give it any merit. Already multiple politicians and world leaders have spoken up about the verdict, have said that both Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant are more than welcome in their respective countries. Germany so far has remained relatively quiet, as has France and as has Britain, so it's very interesting to see whether this will create a rift between the ICC and the rest of the international community. I sincerely hope that it does, because if we start to provide merit, to place merit on such subjective verdicts, especially when there's so much evidence to the contrary that has been callously cast aside, then how can we differentiate between truth and falsehood? How can we teach our future generations about ethics, about morality, if we're so easily to cast them aside in order to appease a certain subcategory of international society who have appeared to be incredibly prone to the manipulative efforts of terrorist organizations and radical entities such as Hamas? These are my thoughts on the subject. The ICC, in my opinion, has failed dramatically, and its future, in my opinion, should be cast in doubt. The ICC, in my eyes, is prone for huge reforms, and probably should let a lot of people go and refill their ranks with fresh and smart blood who are able to differentiate between subjectivity and objectivity, and who will not bend no matter how loud the voices become, or no matter how popular a certain narrative or opinion seems to be. This is all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much for listening to this clip. If you have any questions or any comments for me, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. Please leave a like beneath this video and subscribe to my channel. I seek to disseminate more content to you guys in the near future. Once again, I thank you very much for listening to this clip, and I wish you a blessed day. Thank you.